more of like a work thing they were interviewing you for?
They're just interested in me, and they like to shoot me.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I get to interview somebody so incredible.
They've been seeing me around the scene here for a while, so I live down here most of my life.
Yeah. What kind of music do you sing?
I'm not really a singer.
Okay.
I play percussion,
Bless you.
tabla, doumbek, and mallets, and then I mess around with other instruments when I'm in the mood. But mainly I'm a percussionist.
Awesome. It's pretty cool. I bet you swing your hair quite a bit. Is that fair?
Do I swing my hair? When I'm at a show and I'm dancing, sometimes the hair does get
There
to
we go.
swinging.
I'm new to long hair.
Okay.
I'm new to long hair, so I'm learning all the ways that I can use it.
It's a lot easier. I find it easier.
Yeah.
Short hair, like you sort of have to make it do what you want it to do, and it doesn't want to.
Yeah.
And long hair will just basically just take care of itself.
It'll hang out, literally.
Yeah, it'll fall and it'll do what it wants to do, and it usually looks fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, 3 questions.
All right.
Okay.
I might ask a couple curiosity, like follow-up questions to understand something. But the 3 questions are: what's your story? What problem in the world means the most to you? And who's the most impressive person that you've met, and what made them impressive to you? So I'd love to start with you guys' story. How did you guys meet? Who are you guys as individuals? How did you get to meeting a random guy in a park today?
Well, we both lived down here most of our lives. We both live in New York all of our lives. I mean, Allison got here when she was 4, and I was born here. So we both been around here most of our lives. How do we meet? We had a mutual friend who liked to have dance parties on Fridays and invite everybody he knew, and that's one of the ways that we kind of got to know each other. We also were involved in some community support efforts, and Allison is a licensed social worker, so she's one of these people whose altruism impressed me early on.
Yeah.
I admire people with altruistic intention. So that was a good 20 odd years ago that we met. We've been together since like 2002, 2003. Most of us have lived down here, for extended periods of time.
I've lived here since the late 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I moved down here when I was 15, so that was over 60 years ago. Yeah, so, we like it down here. This neighborhood's home.
Yeah. We were both interested in Buddhism.
Yeah,
Chris had studied Buddhism in college, so and languages, so he had a more pretty much advanced understanding of Buddhism, but I'm also interested, and we've gone to some teachings.
Yeah, we've gone to teachings and some empowerments, which are basically, a practice where you do visualizations and get mantra and things like that.
Yeah, it's basically, we've mostly gone to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, like the Dalai Lama. We saw him a number of times, and they're, groups.
So, Allison, she lived, when she was a kid, she lived in the, over on the West Village. Then, she moved here.
Yes.
So in the late 80s.
I lived on the Upper East Side since from most of my childhood, and then came down here when I was going to college, and got an apartment.
Yeah, Allison's mother still lives on the Upper East Side, so we'll go visit her. She's 88. I was born in Brooklyn. I came over here. I went to high school in Manhattan. Manhattan just seemed safer than Brooklyn when I was a kid. Brooklyn was
Yeah.
everything was territories, and you could walk down the wrong block and get your behind handed to you. Uh, that's down here. I mean, people considered this neighborhood dangerous when I first moved down here, but it was very diverse and people left you alone. So that seemed much safer to me, in the early days that I was down here, because people left me alone, and I was, just not a threat. I did not pose a threat. Um, in Brooklyn, where I grew up, it was like if you were the wrong ethnicity on the wrong block, now people have an issue with you, just for that.
Yeah.
So down here, I mean, everyone is sort of mixed up and not really here voluntarily, but by necessity, and so people had at least from where I was sitting, they seemed to be leaving each other alone. New York was kind of segregated in terms of ethnicities, block by block, but if they didn't know what you where you were from, it sort of didn't bother with you. So yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn. I moved here when I was 15. Hitchhiked around the country for like good 8 or 10 years after high school. Graduated.
8 years.
Yeah.
You spent
On and off.
On and off. I would come back here. When I would go out west, I would go to the national parks and go to the high country and camp out.
But the whole time you're hitchhiking.
Yeah, I never travel with money, and I
Well-
rarely travel with equipment.
Right, but you went to college in between.
I did. Well, that was after. Yeah. Then in between. Yeah. Well, what happened was I came back here, and I had been sort of not. I had just been wandering around out west. And
Yeah.
occasionally getting in trouble with the law for this or that, mainly because hitchhiking was illegal. So then, I started to want to study again, So I started studying Tibetan language with a teacher here. He eventually had to leave the city because he'd got a job at a university in New England. And so I was like, I needed to continue studying, so he introduced me to his teacher, who, good segue, he introduced me to his teacher, the most impressive person I ever met.
Oh, yes.
Whoa. Okay.
So-
I'll ask you about him
Yeah.
in a little bit.
Yeah. So.
Or her.
Yeah. So then I was at a Buddhist monastery, Tibetan Buddhist monastery in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I lived there. I'm sorry.
All
I
good.
lived there for about a year.
Yeah.
They taught me a language. They taught me how to cook. They taught me how to take care of myself because I was just a teenager then. So if I had been older, I probably would have learned more. But on the other hand, they saved my life. So grateful for that. Yeah, so that's a big part of my story. One of my teachers there, who was like a brilliant scholar, received an appointment at a large Midwestern university. So I followed him there to get my degree, like sort of went back to college to get my degree, and studied with him there and a number of other really interesting people. While I was there, I also met the musician and composer I most admired in my life. Who just happened to be there and put a band together. So I got to play with him, and that was just, I had been practicing, so I was prepared. So fortunately for me, or not fortunately, but wisely for me, I was prepared. Didn't know what I was preparing for, but when the opportunity arose, I was prepared. Allison's heard this story countless times, so my apologies. So then, I did some postgraduate work. The money ran out. I came back here and did this and that. Did some figure modeling. Did work in design studios. And one thing led to another, and now I work for an advertising agency. I work from home. I work from over there.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are now.
I love it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I would say a few words.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. So right, as we said, I came down here in the '80s. First I was a film production major well, not first, but in college, I got a degree in film production and creative writing, and this has been an important part of my life, being in this neighborhood, and I've been lucky to stay here because I have a rent-stabilized apartment, and I segued. I wanted to work as a social worker and a therapist. In my mid-30s, I decided I wanted to segue out of any kind of film work, and and then I also worked as a preschool teacher. So I really was partly I wanted to become a therapist because I wanted to help children. So because I had been a preschool teacher, then I could see that I was kind of wanted to help the children who have the most difficulties, work with their families. So that was that was how I made a transition to that. I'm sorry, I'm a little cold. And
Okay. I wish I had water to give you.
oh, it's okay. Actually, you have
Yeah.
a cough drop.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm contagious or anything,
No, you're not contagious, but just got this
yeah.
issue.
Anyway, So I guess that's about it. That for me. Yeah.
Thanks.
Um,
One thing I'm curious about, I've been around some Buddhism. My girlfriend has taken me to a temple. I think it's called a temple. I wonder, like, if you were to just encapsulate some of the lessons of Buddhism into like one to three things, like what are some of those lessons that the world could use?
Well, I mean, I think the essential teachings of in Buddhism are centered on compassion and compassionate activity. And so, in order to understand the needs of other beings, one needs wisdom. And wisdom and compassion, it turns out, are the same thing. They are aspects of the same practices. So, in Buddhism, we understand things this way. Time is beginningless and endless. The number of beings, sentient beings, are countless. We have been in every conceivable relationship with every other sentient being countless times. So it's important to generate compassion toward other beings in order to be of greatest benefit and service to yourself and others through compassionate activity. And so one of the ways we do that is by remembering that because we've been in every conceivable relationship with every living being has been our mother countless times, given us life, cared for us at their own expense of their own, health, and would have died for us. And so, whatever our relationship to the being before us right now, whether we don't like them, don't care one way or the other, or do like them, we owe them a repayment to the kindness that they gave us as our mother. And so that is a technique that's used in meditation to generate this kind of universal compassion, and it takes a lot of practice. It's not just going to be, you're not going to be able to do it just like that. But if you continue to, uh, you know, generate this kind of thinking about other beings, you may be more likely to be compassionate in a situation where you might otherwise not be so compassionate. So, and then the wisdom aspect is the understanding that things are don't have their own, that things do not exist on their own independently or separately, but are all generated like interdependently, and things don't exist on their own, no matter how much they appear to exist on their own.
They're all connected.
Yes, we're all connected, and we're all not only are we interconnected, but our conception of things as being separate and of ourselves as being separate is basically the cause of all suffering, because it keeps us separate and it keeps our interests from being different. It remains our interests remain different, whereas ultimately
If we are all
our
connected, then all of
our
our interests are
all
aligned.
the same.
Wow.
We all want love and compassion. We all want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. But the cause of our suffering is our misapprehension of reality.
Whoa.
And so the cultivation of the correct apprehension of reality is very important in Buddhism. And a good way to start is to think of all beings as having been our mothers, because when we develop compassion for others, we're less likely to focus on the things that separate us, and much more likely to understand how we're all in this together, so to speak.
It's like you studied this. So
I'm
Yeah, you
a
did in
total
college.
rookie.
I know.
I'm a complete
No, but
rookie at
he's
this.
had many like Buddhist teachers, like actual,
Yeah.
what do we call that? Like a primary,
Yeah, I have like
primary
a root
teachers.
teacher.
In other words, they're from Tibet, and they
Yeah, these guys were heavyweights.
in both college and out of college. So,
Yeah. So so these guys, and women, practitioners would, probably have been doing these practices for lifetimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember the first time I heard about Buddhism. It felt to me like I had forgotten that I was supposed to be doing something, and I needed to start doing this again. So,
and you were a child.
yeah, I was just like 10 or 11 when I first came across like Buddhist teachings, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot I'm supposed to be doing
This is
this.
it. Wow.
How did I forget
Probably
this?
From another life, right?
Yeah.
As a
Yeah,
reincarnation.
it felt that way, like right away. And then I'm like, all right. So I read everything that was in English at the time, which was not much. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to study the language to read the real deal. And and for me that was Tibetan.
That's incredible. Anything you'd want to add to that? Lessons for the world
Oh, lessons for the world. Wow.
from Buddhism?
Yeah, no, pretty much what Chris was saying. I mean, I think, recognizing, we're all connected, and we're, letting go of the ego, and, just this idea of just, what is it Dalai Lama says? My religion is kindness. So, and that can be, I don't know, I'm thinking how that can be challenging to, sometimes embody, or to demonstrate, I'm even thinking of myself about ways maybe I could be more kind in the world and more of service. But, so I think pretty much,
Thank you. The second big question um, I'm at a point in my life where I'm kind of looking for that thing that is the thing I feel like I need to be doing. And one of my ways of doing this is listening to the world through other people. And so I'm asking the question, what problem in the world right now means the most to you? And I'd love to hear how you guys answer that.
Well, I mean, again, the problem always seems to be about misapprehension of reality,
Yeah.
which leads to sectarianism, which leads to war, which leads to greed and things like that, where people are cherishing themselves and their own interest, not realizing that that is the very thing which is going to cause them and others to suffer and to prevent them from having what they want, which would be peace of mind, harmony, and enough for everyone. So again, this misapprehension of reality, and one of the things that it really disturbs me is the nihilistic nature of much of the way people in this society view the world. You're born from nothing, you become nothing. But nothing is not a thing. There is no such thing as nothing, right?
And
That
matter is
in
neither created
that
or
is in
destroyed.
negation. And so the problem is that people feel that their actions will not have consequences. All you got to do is just off yourself and you're off the hook. But that is a real problem, because that's, if a person is a warrior and they feel that they can kill in the interest of what they believe to be important, they do not believe in the consequences of their actions. And so I know this is very,
Yeah.
very abstract and
Just have
theoretical,
to make sure I
but
didn't get a text.
but it is the root of like all the things that we are concerned about: the environment, war, famine, poverty, sectarianism, all of this stuff. The root of it is a lack of understanding of the nature of reality. So, those are big problems. I worry about them all the time. And but I also know that there are those among us who do have a more accurate apprehension of the way things are, and are valuable teachers that we can have access to if we make effort, right? So, it's an interesting thing, because in order for us to make effort to do that, we need to understand the preciousness of our current situation, and we need to take care of ourselves enough so that we can avail ourselves of the preciousness of this situation. We're born as people who have the minds and the opportunity to learn the nature of reality. We have the time, we have the opportunity, we have those around us with wisdom who can offer us their understanding. And so I think it's important to remember that this opportunity is rare and precious. Where we are right now, having this conversation, is rare and precious, and we should not shortchange it, right? We should understand how valuable it is and not waste it. So this life we're in right now, where we're having this conversation, it's the most important thing that's ever happened to us, in my opinion, because we have this opportunity. Our lives are brief, right? Time of death, uncertain. The death is definitely certain.
Yeah.
So we have only a limited amount of time. We shouldn't waste it. We should use it to gain greater understanding of each other.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there something in the world that is really meaningful to
Yeah,
you?
I think it's interesting to think about that in terms of like maybe domestically, as versus, well, yeah, I think that, income inequality and exploitation of people in various ways, labor and their, um, yeah, I think that is a big concern and how to change that. But that goes on throughout the world, but it happens to be, of course, I'm in the United States, so I happen to see it a lot here, and I'm reading and listening to people talk about that here. And what was the other thing? Well, I mean, I'm just sort of starting to understand, but I am concerned about AI and the long-term impact of that. Because maybe it may be, I mean, again, it's easy to ignore that, but I mean, from my sense is that it's a huge, a huge change, it can be really exploited, it can be really harmful potentially, and it feels like maybe people aren't really aware of that. I don't know. I mean, even though people are talking about it, the actual harm that could be happening, or the change of our lives might be more, it might happen quicker than we think, and even if it doesn't, it's just going to affect people that come, after us. So, in terms of just, people talk about really work very changing and so many things, right? So I'm concerned about that and the fact that it seems like there's not a lot of, brakes being put on. There's not a lot of, let's see. Yeah, ethical safety put into place. Yeah. So I'd say those two things. But it was interesting thinking about war and how that hasn't really directly affected my life. I haven't lived in a time of war, actually. I mean, in terms of in this country where I was in the same country war was happening. But when I think about that devastation, I mean, it's always just been so painful for me to think, and that as humans we engage in war, and kill each other. So I guess that's it.
Yeah. Thank you. Long awaited, most impressive person. You mentioned him earlier.
So this is a person who could have ignored me. I was introduced to him by a student of his who he obviously respected enough to talk to me and consider teaching me. At the time, I was underage. I hadn't been in touch with my family for a while, but when he met me, because I came recommended by a student of his that he esteemed, it was like, all right, we will teach you. But, first of all, you're very young and you're wild and crazy. So, we'll teach you, but you have to live with us. And so, since you're underage, we've got to get a signature from your folks to say it's okay, we're not abducting you or anything like that. We're not a cult. We're just teaching you. You can live here. We won't charge you anything. You'll do chores around here, and we'll give you teachings. So, so I got in touch with my mother, who hadn't seen me for a while. And so picture my mother in this monastery having tea with this Tibetan Lama, and going like, all right, cool, this is good, like we were wondering about what the hell he was going to, at least now we know where he is, and he don't seem very threatening to us. So that was how that got started, and so he was an interesting person in a number of ways, but mainly, what impressed me was his understanding of people, because he taught different people differently,
Whoa.
and he didn't really seem to have an agenda. Like his personality wasn't a personality; it was a kind of a malleable, adaptable to the needs
Mm.
of who he was talking to. So if you needed toughness, he could be tough. If you needed mothering, he could be motherly. And so for me, he was motherly. um, because I had been out wandering around on the road, and I was just a wild kid. And at the time, there was a war, raging in Southeast Asia, and they were, sending all of our young people up there to out there
And this was what, in the late 60s?
in the late 1960s.
Yeah.
We were having we got ourselves in a terrible jam way on over in Vietnam. So anyway, that was, everyone was getting drafted, going over there, getting their head shot off. So,
And while that was happening, you were with this
and I was at this monastery.
teacher at a
And
monastery.
then, you had to
Wow.
register for selective service. And if you were a man, you had to enlist. And so, when I was 18, I was living at this monastery. And that was when I had to register for the
Wow.
selective service.
Yeah.
And then they were like, wait, where are you living? You're at a Buddhist monastery? Could you send some documentation for that? So my teacher sent documentation. And then they were like, yeah, we don't want it.
Well, it's, what is it, conscientious? No,
No,
you had a
no.
religious...
They gave me a deferment like they give to,
Yeah.
like, people in
Clergy.
religious orders.
Yes,
Right.
you were under that. Yeah.
Whatever, they asked for a letter from him. And whatever he said to them, they were like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Nope.
what I was like.
no, we don't want to send them over to be killed. You can keep them. So, that was very important. I never expected that. But I suspect he knew exactly what he was doing around that. It was like, you have to live with us. Why? Because there were students of his who were much better than me, who were much more serious than me, who were much more scholarly than I, who would come to visit on a weekly basis. And I remember them asking me, how come you get to live here and we don't?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I'm more fucked up than you. I need constant surveillance. You guys have good, you all are fine. No one worried about you, but me, they're worried about, obviously.
Tight leash.
Yeah. So, that was not the most impressive thing about this person. What was the impressive thing about this person was just like, when you were in their presence, you knew you were in the presence of an excellent teacher who understood the needs of their various students and could do that for them.
Yeah.
And that's extremely rare. I've met a few of those people, and they stand out.
Yeah.
So, if what I would say to you is, find one of those people. They're out there.
You want to tell him the name of your teacher?
Yeah, the name of my teacher was Geshe Wangyal, Wangyal, and he was he was educated in Tibet. He was born in Russia, in Kalmykia, and those are Mongol Russians who practice Tibetan Buddhism. He was educated in Tibet. He was sent there as a child and studied at the large Tibetan monasteries, and then traveled the world and ended up here in the United States at the behest of the Dalai Lama, because he knew he was a fine teacher who would fit in here, who knew enough about different cultures that he would be able to understand Americans and maybe help some of us, learn about this teaching. So yeah, he was a brilliant teacher, but also, fun to be around. He was funny. He was, yeah,
He was very varied in
and
his
he
skills.
really worked hard.
Yeah,
He was very strong. I mean,
physically.
he could
Yeah.
build things, you know. So he's the right person for the job of bringing this teaching here. One of the earliest teachers to bring this teaching here.
Yeah. There's a documentary about him.
Yeah.
Geshe Wang,
Yeah,
that we've seen. But
Yeah. yeah. So he was definitely a unique person, and
really
And he saved my life.
influenced you. Yeah.
and you know the things that happened subsequently. You know, things really fell into place for me in many ways once I came in contact with him, and I can explain that. You know, he set me on a path. That's all.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you found him,
Mm-hmm.
or that he found you, or
Yeah.
that the world put you together.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's amazing.
yeah. You meet some of these people, and you're like, they're inside my head. They know exactly what I'm thinking. You know, and they know, what I need to be thinking.
Right.
They're gonna try to, lead me there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? The time that you lived in, maybe there was more freedom. Like, if you didn't make a lot of money, or you had, you weren't involved in intense amount of work, like 40-hour work, day work. The
Yeah.
rents back then in the 60s were very low. Like, you had a certain freedom to sort of pursue your interests,
Yeah.
right? Like to learn Tibetan. And, I think it's interesting how Chris's story, is also a lot of sociological, description of what things were like in that period, what the freedoms you had,
Yeah,
you know,
the privileges.
the privileges you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, again, gets us back to this thing, like, life is brief. Human life is precious. The opportunities that we receive here, the privileges that we find that are available to us, we should be grateful enough to remember that they don't last, and that they're very precious, and we need to use them, for our benefit, but also so that we may benefit others.
Yeah.
That's really the most important thing, because the more we benefit others, the more we benefit ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not easy to remember that all the time.
Yeah. It's true.
So I need constant reminders of that. It's a daily practice.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me today. How would you answer this question?
About the most impressive. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think one person that I was inspiring to me was this psychologist, therapist. Her name is Leslie Koplow, and she created a program where therapists would be able to go into the New York City public schools and work with children that had trauma, that were associated, that had trauma histories. And so she just created this program, all on her own, maybe collaborating, and it reached many, many children. And we also, I think, what was it called? The Center for Emotionally Responsive Practice, something like that. And she was able to get a team of people together, a pretty large team, and work with the teachers too. And I got to teach some classes to teachers about how to recognize trauma in children, how to help them without, how to do like projects within the class, the whole class, instead of doing like individual one-on-one therapy, although that was possible too, but how to kind of help children express what was really going on in their lives, and maybe work it through art and
Yeah, I love it.
play and things like that. So, and she also had a school for, like a program, School for Emotionally Disturbed Children. I got to work there for a while, and so I'd say she was impressive, the fact